Can you hear me? Yeah? How are you guys doing tonight? Good? So happy to be here. Okay, before I start, I want to ask you a couple questions. We're going to make it interactive. Who here believes that men cannot become women? Raise your hand. Who here believes in capitalism? Does anyone here believe that children and free speech are hills worth dying on? Yeah, me too. And I'm going to tell you my story because I have died on that hill a few times already, and I keep coming back. So we're going to talk about moral courage. That's what I want to talk about. I'm going to tell you a story about who I am because you probably don't know. I want to ask you, though, has anyone heard of my brand, XXXY Athletics? Have you guys heard of it? I'm going to throw a hat out. There's more upstairs if you are interested. We are here selling products. So, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. So, I was a gymnast, a very serious gymnast. I started gymnastics just a few years after Title IX passed in 1974. I am indebted to Title IX, the opportunities that I had. I was a national team member for almost 10 years. I was a 1986 national champion. Now, if you know anything about gymnastics, you know that it's a pretty tough sport and it's a pretty abusive training environment. So I was no exception to that. I endured 8-hour training sessions every day by the time I was 13 years old, 8 hours a day, 10 hours in the summer. There was intense fat shaming in my gym. Our weight was announced on the loudspeaker every day, twice a day. Jen says, is fat. We don't coach fat gymnasts. She gained 1/4 pound. You need to go into the corner and do extra conditioning for an hour. I was forced to train on a broken ankle for 2 years. That's what this sport is like. When I walked away from gymnastics, despite the fact that I've been a 10-year national team member and the 1986 national champion, I was completely broken and I felt like a total failure. So while I'm indebted to sports and to Title IX, we can do better for our children. This is not what they should have to endure. I suffered from anxiety, PTSD. I had terrible nightmares for nearly 20 years after I left the sport. It haunted me. I really struggled with it. But I did eventually realize, if I believe them and what they said about me, what does that make me? What does that mean about me? If I believe as little in myself as what those coaches wanted me to believe, if I believed that I was garbage because they told me, then I'm not standing up and becoming the person that I know I can be. I am not representing the values. I know that we as humans, we are how we behave towards others, right? How we show up in the world. It's what we think. It's what we do. It's not our weight. It's not the medals that we win. It's how we show up in the world. And I forced myself to put that abusive coaching behind me. And I stopped hating myself. I left college and I went to work in the fashion business. I worked at Levi's for 23 years. Some of you may have heard my story. It went a little viral. And you know what? By the time I turned 40, I realized I was still sort of suffering from that abuse that I dealt with at the hands of these terrible, terrible coaches. And I wondered why. I was a mother of 2. I was married. And I decided I was going to try to make sense of it all. I was going to sit down and write it down. And I wrote a book. I had no idea how to write a book. I did not know what I was doing. But I thought, if I'm honest, if I'm really honest, I can maybe create something that will help other people. But really what I wanted to do is I wanted to expose this culture of abuse so that no child would ever have to go through what I went through again. That's all I thought about. I didn't want another child to have to endure the abusive training that I did. Well, I did get it published. And I will tell you, this was all the way back in 2008. I was not prepared. We were new at social media then. Some of you were, gosh, how young were you? Very young. You were small children. I didn't know what that was going to be like, the backlash. And I will tell you, when you say things you're not supposed to say, they come for you. Even if they're true. Especially if they're true, I might argue. It did not go particularly well for me. I was dragged across the internet by my gymnastics teammates, by the coaches, by USA Gymnastics, by the US Olympic Committee. And you know what that did? It strengthened my resolve because I knew that if they came for me like that, they had even more to hide than what I was reporting on. I didn't know yet about Larry Nassar. Now, have you guys heard of this terrible man? I learned just a few years later about Larry Nassar. Larry Nassar was the doctor for Team USA gymnastics. He abused over 500 young athletes over 30 years under the guise of medical treatment. 30 years. It was reported again and again and again. And no one did anything. Young girls reported it again and again and again. But the organization, USA Gymnastics, the US Olympic Committee, they were more interested in protecting the reputations of these men, these coaches who were abusing children, of protecting the reputation of the sport than protecting children. And so as they came for me, and I lost friends, all of the friends I grew up training with, as they came for me, I knew in my heart I needed to push back. I needed to stand up. I needed to stand strong. I was the only athlete willing to talk about it. Let me tell you what it was like. I traveled around the country with the coach of Team USA. He was a known pedophile. And do you know what USA Gymnastics told us? Just don't go in a room alone with him. That's what they told us. This man is now banned from the sport because of my book. So, you know, if you speak up and you tell the truth, and you're persistent, but you have to be persistent, and you have to be ready to withstand the onslaught that will inevitably come for you. Now, when Larry Nassar, when that was revealed, that first came to light in 2016. He went to prison for life in 2018. Over 100 young women spoke at his sentencing and told their stories. I was suddenly redeemed as someone that had told the truth all along. Of course, they forgot the way they had attacked me. So here I was. I had been hated for 10 years in the sport. I was completely thrown out of the community. I had no friends from my time training as a gymnast. And all of a sudden, oh, Jen was right all along. And you know what? That's fine. I welcome them to the fight. I welcome anyone to the fight who wants to stand up, speak the truth, and protect children. Doesn't matter what your history was. If you want to come on board, let's do it. So I made a movie about Larry Nassar and about the abuse in gymnastics. It's called Athlete A. You can watch it on Netflix. We won an Emmy. I'm very proud of that film. Now, here's the good part. Are you ready? So I made this movie. It comes out early 2020. I win an Emmy. And guess what? I'm completely redeemed. So I decided it might be a really good idea to challenge the restrictions, the school closures, the lockdowns during COVID. This did not go well for me. I lived in San Francisco. I did not mention this, and I'm going to tell you my evolution, but I had been a Democrat. Don't throw anything at me. I'm going to tell you the next part. Don't throw anything at me. But I was so offended. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but in San Francisco, the schools were closed for 20 months. The playgrounds were closed for a year. From day one, I said, absolutely not. I have 4 children across a wide range of ages. I was not okay with it, not for 1 second. My husband and I pushed back from day one in San Francisco. This did not go well for us. At the time, I was a very senior executive at Levi Strauss & Company. Have you guys heard of Levi's? Do you wear Levi's? Yeah. I had been there 20 years, which is unheard of in corporate America. I was the chief marketing officer and then the brand president. I think I was the only C-suite executive to publicly stand up against lockdowns and school closures. I am also the most well-known C-suite executive to get fully canceled because of her COVID views. So, I'll let you make of that what you will. It got really bad. I started on Facebook arguing with friends and family. That didn't go great, so I moved over to Twitter, the land of nuanced takes. Just kidding. But it hurt less to be yelled at by people I didn't know, a little less. Called every name you can imagine, from a murderer to a eugenicist, a racist, because of course I wanted all the black children to die. That's what it meant if you wanted the schools open. Crazy. All those gymnasts that had forgiven me for 2 hot seconds did petitions to get me fired. They called relentlessly into the ethics hotline at my place of work, saying that I was a walking, talking ethics violation. It got bad. People chased me down the street. They published my address online. And again, why did I do it? Children. COVID was the most egregious violation of our civil liberties in any of our lifetimes. I am very confident in saying that. Has anybody ever told you you can't leave your house before COVID? Did anyone ever tell you can't have people inside your home? You can't send your children to school. You can't go to church. You can't go to synagogue. You can't run your business. And people accepted it? No way. I did not accept it. I had to leave San Francisco. I was stalked on the streets. I had to resign from my job. And I learned throughout this process that most people would rather stand with the safety of the crowd, even if they know what's happening is wrong, than stand apart and do the right thing. And you have to ask yourself every single day, if not me, then who? If I am not willing to stand up for free speech and children, who am I? Who am I? People ask me all the time. My entire life was transformed. A 30-year career, poof, out the window. New city after 35 years. People ask me all the time, why were children and free speech the hill you were willing to die on? And do you know what I say to them? If you aren't willing to die on a hill of free speech and children, I don't think you even have a hill. Now, it won't be easy, but I feel like you all are prepared to do it. You have to be ready to go into the world and be the only person in a room that is willing to stand up and say a thing, to say a true thing in defense of freedom and defense of our children. If you aren't willing to do that, I think you need to take a good long look in the mirror, and I know you all are, and I know you all know people that are not, right? So I didn't stop. I was told, you probably don't want to do this. I said, I'm going to do it. It's the children. It's the children. And I don't know where it came. I don't know. I couldn't stop. All I could think about was these children locked in tiny apartments in San Francisco, children who were living below the poverty line, who didn't have an adult at home to mind them, who didn't have an adult to help them. I couldn't stop. I was just committed, and I was willing to blow up my life for it and turn my life upside down. So I did just that. I blew my life up because of COVID and because of children. So I resigned in 2022, 23 years at the company, and I resigned. And I went out. I was a little lost, I'm not going to lie. Everything I knew had changed overnight. Family members that don't speak to me still because of COVID. I'm not kidding you. You're nodding your head because you know what that's like. Close family members, not distant relatives. Well, I started to interview for jobs. I'm the breadwinner in my family. And here's what I heard. Will you apologize for what you've done? I was like, are you kidding me? Why? I was right about everything. And even if I wasn't right, and I was, I get to say the thing, right? Even if I was totally wrong, I get to say it. But I was right. So I was 100% right. Anyway, I decided that, okay, I'm going to have to make my own way. So that's how I came up with this idea for a brand. An apparel brand that pushes back on woke capitalism. An apparel brand that stands up for biological reality, material reality, that knows what a woman is, and that supports free speech. I decided I would make my own way in my mid-50s and do a startup, which is not exactly the optimal timing, but you know, life takes you where it takes you. At 55 years old, I started over. New business, a startup, it's a long road, new city. I'm working on my third cancellation. I've had 2 already, but I think after that, you're maybe uncancelable. Not sure. We're the only brand standing up for women's sports and spaces. Do not buy another athletic apparel brand. They are all in on this garbage. Every single major athletic apparel brand, major, Nike, Adidas, they all support the idea that men can be women if they say they are. And we will not have women's sports. How many women in the room have done sports in high school or college? If men enter our sports, they are no longer women's sports. So you need to stand up and fight for it because you all benefited from it. and you need to wear the brand proudly. I believe that brands influence culture, and we have been fighting a culture war with two hands tied behind our backs. If we don't have brands that communicate our values, if we don't have the opportunity to give our money to companies that share our values. The left is really good at this. They're really good at it. They push ideas into the culture through brands. Well, we have an option now. We have an alternative. There's a couple others, not that stand on this issue, but probably that you would share their values. And I would just encourage you, do not support brands that support this craziness. It's hard because you're probably used to them and you're accustomed to them, and you might like your Jordans a whole lot. I have a lot of Nikes in my closet that I don't wear anymore. I'm trying to decide what to do with them. I used to wear them. I think we can create world-class brands with better ideas. And we can arm people, because some people, they want to weigh in and they don't know how. But guess what? I'm going to show you the logo. Sorry, I'm not taking my clothes off. If you wear this, it's really simple. It's really easy because it just says, the logo says, I believe in biological reality, right? So I'm going to end with a quick story. I live in Denver, Colorado. Oh, wait, I didn't tell you during March 2020, I decided I was no longer a Democrat, because how could I be? It was just, I was so over all of it, and everything during COVID was such a trespass of what I thought the Democrats' stated values were. Standing up for children, standing up for the vulnerable, free speech. I mean, the censorship was beyond, right? So I left, but I became an independent. I didn't want to be held to a litmus test. I wanted to vote my conscience, which I've always done. But 6 weeks ago, the day after Charlie was murdered, I re-registered as a Republican, so. I don't want anything to do. I don't want them to think I'm gettable. I'm not gettable anymore. Let me tell you a story about the brand and the power of this logo. I live in Denver, pretty blue. I wear it everywhere. It's my brand. Why wouldn't I? I have to wear it everywhere. So my daughter, she's 8 years old, and she's pretty good at soccer. And she was wearing our T-shirt to soccer practice. And one of the moms starts marching up to me one day. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't feel like it. Not now. I don't really feel like doing this. So she marches up to me, and she goes, I don't know if you know what that shirt means. I was like, I do, in fact. I know exactly what it means. She didn't know it was my brand. I'm sure she went home and Googled and realized. And she said, well, I need you to know that it's very offensive. And I said, biological reality is not offensive. I believe strongly in protecting women's sports and spaces. She lectured me for a half an hour, and I didn't back down. I corrected every mistake and fact she thought she uttered. She said this will lead to genital checks and all this stuff, which is utterly false. But you know what? She did not expect a person to challenge her. I was nice, I was kind, I was factual. She did not expect that. They're used to being able to say whatever they want and having us just be quiet. Do not be quiet. At the end of the conversation, she said to me, I trust that you will have your daughter not wear that shirt to practice anymore. And I said, you would be wrong. And I went home, and I ordered shirts and gave them to half the parents on the team that I knew agree with me. So thank you for having me.